This is the Season Long Podcast in support of the YouTube channel SeasonLongBaller. Good day to you, and how are you doing? Kicking off your week on a Monday for podcast number 31. Now, we know that the series for the NBA Finals, Wizards-Grizzlies, was standing at 3-1 with Game 5 last Friday. Were the Wizards able to get the ring? Well, let's take a look. As you know, this is the 1 seed out of the West, the Memphis Grizzlies, against the 1 seed out of the East, the Washington Wizards. And in Game 5, the Wizards were able to pull out a 76-68 victory in order to claim the NBA crown in our simulation. Now, taking a look at Game 5 a little closer, the Grizzlies only shot 41% from the field. The Wizards shot 48%. The Wizards were 7 out of 22 from deep. The Grizzlies were 7 out of 28. But the biggest disparity in this game, and I guess if you were the Grizzlies, especially with the game being in Washington, you'd be hot. The Grizzlies shot 1 free throw. That's right, 1 free throw. And they did hit it. However, the Wizards shot 15 free throws, making all 15. That is a 14-point difference. Now, obviously, the margin here for the Grizzlies' loss is 8 points, but a 15-1 free throw disparity is a major difference. Another big difference in this game is, Daniel Gafford was in the starting lineup over Kyle Kuzma at the 4, and the Wizards in this particular game dominated the boards 42-28, which has not been the case in most of the series, really cleaning up their defensive boards with a 35-20 advantage on cleaning up your own glass there. That is, again, one of the big differences in the game. Now, granted, the Grizzlies didn't shoot very well, and the Wizards did shoot a bit better. But the rebounding advantage for the Wizards, again, with the insertion of Daniel Gafford into the starting lineup, and the 15 free throws, the big 15-1 disparity was the biggest difference in Game 5. Now, the Wizards were led by Jaymont Summerz, our NBA 2K23 player build. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit as we go forward. But Summerz had 29 points, 11 out of 17 from the field, and 3 out of 7 from deep. And really, outside of Monte Morris, who was 6 out of 7, the Wizards didn't shoot really well at all. Beal was 3 out of 9. Porzingis was 2 out of 9. Kuzma was 1 out of 4 coming off the bench. Barton was only 1 out of 3, and Avdia was 1 out of 2. Daniel Gafford, despite starting, was 0 for 3. So the Wizards, outside of really Morris and Summerz, did not shoot the ball very well. And Summerz had the key plays in the game that basically got the Wizards the victory, because going into the fourth quarter, the Wizards did have the lead, but the Grizzlies walked them down late in Game 5. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. For the Grizzlies, who did not shoot as well, Ja Morant, as usual, led the way with 17 points, but shot pretty well, 8 out of 14 overall, but only 1 out of 5 from deep, had 4 assists to go along with that as well. Jaren Jackson shot well, 5 out of 6 from the field for 11 points. But the big problem for the Grizzlies was Bane was only 3 out of 10 from the field, 2 out of 7 from deep, and Xavier Tillman had 12 shots, only hitting 4 of them. And that was a big difference there for the Grizzlies on the offensive side of the ball. So Game 5 ends up going to the Wizards. The Wizards are now the NBA Finals, the NBA champions for this season in our simulation. And that's going to do it for our season, actually, for Season Long Baller. So here's what we have coming up in the offseason. We'll keep the podcast going for the rest of this month. So we have one more podcast, number 32, will happen next Monday. And then we will be off for the entire week of July. We need to give Jaymont Summerz a little bit of rehab time, right? Make sure that you check out SeasonLongBaller.com. We'll have some new clip uploads there. And then we will return in August with our podcast again on Monday, probably every other Monday or so in August. And we'll talk about the draft, the real draft, of course, the real NBA 2024 NBA season, and of course, NBA 2K24. So what are we going to be doing with Jaymont Summerz next season? A lot of that depends on what the real Wizards do. If the real Wizards draft a young point guard, if some kind of miracle way Scoot Henderson fell into the Wizards' pockets, well, then we will probably move Jaymont Summerz off of the Wizards. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll make it a poll and decide where he would end up going. Part of the reason he ended up on the Wizards this season in the first place, why we put our player build there in the first place, is we did not want him to displace, or because he couldn't, basically he couldn't displace established elite point guard. Obviously, he's not better than Ja Morant or even a veteran like Chris Paul. And we did not want him to take the place of, say, a young point guard like a LaMelo Ball, who's obviously on the rise. So the Wizards, no disrespect, obviously, to Monte Morris, who was a main contributor here coming off the bench in our simulation, was being a veteran, but is kind of a stopgap in a way for the real Wizards. So Jaymont Summerz became the point guard there. However, if the Wizards do draft or end up acquiring some young hotshot point guard, then we will move Summerz to some other team that kind of fits that same description with a somewhat, stopgap, maybe veteran point guard, where Summerz would end up being the starter. But again, that's getting a little ahead of ourselves. We will give Summerz some upgrades in the season. I'm looking at using a suggestion from one of our subscribers about, I cannot remember the name of that program right now. It will come to me in a bit. But we will use that program and come up with some of the, probably some XP to upgrade Summerz. Maybe he'll get another badge. As you know, he only has, he has 2. And so we might come up with a way there to upgrade him. But again, that'll be something we will talk about as we go forward. So that's going to do it for this. Oh, wait a minute. I am forgetting one of the key points here. We have to do our Jaymont Summerz play of the week. And that play is something we alluded to a little bit earlier. With the game in the balance in Game 5 after the Grizzlies had rallied, Summerz hits back-to-back threes, and that was basically the difference in the game. And I guess you could call those some championship dagger threes. Oh, very lucky there. That's probably one of the better three-point looks to Summerz that Morant has had. Summerz takes the three and nails it. Where Morant missed it, Summerz hits. It's a 3-point lead with 1:11 to go here in the fourth quarter. That's one of the better looks Morant has had from the three-point line in this game. Morant working against Morris. Summerz guarding Jones. Gets a screen from Clark. Hands it off to Clark, and Clark gets the dunk in there before Porzingis could close. Yeah, I can see why Clark is in the game, because Clark has been doing well. Summerz now waits. 52 to go in the game. We'll go screen and roll with Porzingis. Porzingis slip screen. Summerz comes back on the screen from Porzingis. Takes the three with Jones behind him. It's a deep three. Nails it. Nails it. 4-point lead now for the Wizards with 43 seconds exactly left in the game. Summerz with 27 and 3 back-to-back threes, providing the difference right now in the game. All right, now that's going to do it after Summerz. Also, after the results of those back-to-back threes, Summerz did pick up NBA Finals MVP, and he did have a lot of the key plays. As you know, he scored 11 straight points in Game 1. In Game 2, he went with the double-double, had 10 points and 10 assists. Game 3, the three-point play from Summerz off the pick and roll with Porzingis was the penultimate play in that particular game and stopped the Wizards. And probably the key sequence in the entire series, because if the Grizzlies had won that game, then the series is 2-1 with Game 4 sitting in Memphis. However, with losing that game after that key play, the Grizzlies found themselves down 3-0 with Game 4 in Memphis and, of course, Game 5 in Washington. So Game 3, he had that key play. Game 4, as you know, went the Grizzlies' way. And then Game 5, the back-to-back three. So Summerz did end up earning the NBA Finals MVP. That's going to do it for this edition of the Season Long Podcast. Thank you very much for listening all season long. Thank you for supporting the channel. We will be doing this again next season, obviously, on NBA 2K24, simulating all 82 games of what will look like right now the Washington Wizards schedule again, but we will see as we go forward. That's going to do it for this edition of the Season Long Podcast. Thank you very much for watching and listening all season long, and we will talk to you again very soon. Peace.